Morning, Samuel.
Good morning, IJ. Good morning, Anambra. Happy new week to all of us.
And how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing too?
I'm good. I thank God for today.
Good to know.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have one, two, three, four newspapers, okay, five, six, seven, a whole lot of them. We'll take them as they come to review this morning. But the first in our lineup is the Daily Times. And on the front page of the Daily Times, as you very much know, that we'll read out the stories on the front page of the newspapers, as you go out there to pick the papers and get details of any story of interest to you. Okay. So the Daily Times this morning, the banner headline there says, more than 40% of Nigerians now enjoy 20 hours of power supply daily. This is coming from Adelabu. It's right there, credits achievements in power sector to radical, bold steps taken by Tinubu's administration. Okay, other stories coming from here. Oil theft, NNPC dismantles over 8,000 illegal refineries, 5,800 pipelines in 6 months. And then federal government approves 350 billion naira to support dams, irrigation facilities. And this is coming from the minister. Prioritizing local value addition, key to Africa's industrialization, is another story coming from the Daily Times, and that's coming from Aleke. Okay, do we still have any story of interest here? Down here, federal government has over 64 CNG buses to labor unions and NANS. Well, the writer there says initiative aims to alleviate burden on the poor and the vulnerable. Okay. Troops for ISWAP insurgents attack, recover weapons in Borno. These are minimal are the stories making the round on the front page of the Daily Times. Punch is our next paper this morning. On top of the nine templates of Punch, we have the story. A Naira for crude deal begins Tuesday. This is the story comes from Tinubu panel. Naira for crude oil begins Tuesday. 17 governors to raise minimum wage panels. Hey, I feel like clapping. Okay, that's raising it from 70,000 and above. That's good. Okay, Cameroon down. NEMA crew monitors Niger Benue rivers. We'll keep monitoring. I've surpassed the tractor's 8-year achievement. This is coming from Fubara. Fubara is a River State governor. Then the banner headline on Punch newspaper, October 1 protest, policeman flashpoints, and then APC opposition clash. What's going to happen? State police commands deploy teams. Organizers insist on rally as PDP, LP, Beret, APC. I hope you're safe. Okay, down here, Nigeria at 64, Obasanjo, Akpabio, SGF, service chiefs, grace Thanksgiving service. And then federal government raises teams to avert ASU strike. Okay, police begin probe as lion kills keeper in Obasanjo library. And then the last story coming from here says Constitution Amendment, regional government tops 56 memoranda to National Assembly. Okay, that's all. Let's look at another paper before we get talking, because I can see my guest tapping his feet. Okay, wanting to hit the ground running. Okay, Vanguard is the next paper this morning. On top of the nine templates, federal government has over 64 CNG. We have seen that story. We will resist. Okay, I think we've seen that story also. Let's look at the banner headline. October 1st, police deploy in states as organizers insist on protest. A lot of riders here. Let's see if we can take one or two of them. Our government failed to address protesters' demand. You know, we have had a protest before. And then this one is saying, Adeyunji is saying that government has failed to meet up with the demands. Okay, perhaps that's informed the next protest coming up. October 1st. Okay, hopes more detained protesters will be released today, at least to douse the tension. And then refrain from any acts of violence. This is coming from federal government. Give federal government more time to fix economy. And this is coming from, surprise, surprise, Kogi police. Okay, restriction of protest to 2 designated venues still stands. This is coming from Lagos State government. And then CP Lagos meets organizers, assures on security and professionalism as you protest. Okay, some are saying don't protest, some are already putting arrangements on ground to contain the protesters. Okay, that's good to hear. Jigawa police deploy men today, still on riders coming under that story of October 1 protest. Jigawa police deploy men today. And then the last one says, don't join any protest. Now tells varsity students. Don't join any protest. Okay, that's all about the protest. Let's look at other stories coming from Vanguard newspaper. Labour accuses IOCs, banning agents of exploiting port workers. Okay, and then cement demand soars amidst price hike, declining purchasing power. It has a lot of riders too that we may want to look at and see if we can make sense out of the headline. A key players to record 76.6% rise in revenue. That's under that demand soars and then price hike of cement. Dangote CEO says that we will continue to grow despite low purchasing. And then who is saying the low purchasing power? So you're saying this. Okay, Lafarge CEO. And they growth driven by federal government CAPES. Analyst says this. Investors swoop on companies' shares. Okay, that's all about the cement and the price hike. Serap to INEC chair, obey judgments on electoral offenses. Or get your Venganuzwa and see what that all stands for. Nigeria could end insecurity in 1 year if, this is coming from Indume. You also get your paper to find out the detail of that story. And then Rivers United 2, Enyimba 0, MPFL, Finidi, Rivers United overpower Enyimba. Okay. And then no other story of interest coming from the front page of Vanguard newspaper. Yes, Samuel Ololo. Let's get back to where we started. That's from Daily Times. As we look at what is playing out in the power sector. Let's start with that before we look at the October 1st stories. Of a truth, I think that's improvement in power. Or what do you say?
Thank you very much. It is actually a lot to take in. The newspaper headlines have been excessively busy in different sectors. Talking about power, talking about politics, talking about development. So it has really been very busy. It's still unfortunate that for a country that prides itself as the giant of Africa, even though we are now regrettably beginning to ask ourselves, beyond our population, what else makes us the giant of Africa? Because obviously we are not taking any lead, neither are we showing any example as what it should be like in politics or in governance. Then if it comes to economy, we are third or fourth or thereabouts in Africa. So then even when it comes to our military, we are still asking, there are now a lot of questions around it. So what really makes us the giant of Africa? And then I think this should be a serious question that we need to settle down and think through again and understand our position and grow from it. And so this so-said giant of Africa, after close to 60-something years of independence, is still grappling with power challenges. We are still fighting with incessant or epileptic power supply. So much so that our leaders are now celebrating that 40% of population of 200 million plus people have access to power. And that is, if I'm to be correct with my calculation, we should be talking about what particular number of citizens that have access to power. And this really goes to show why the productivity rate is where it is. And Nigeria also, we must begin to shift our searchlight from those persons, in as much as it is good to celebrate your little wins, but we should begin to shift from those persons who are advantaged, who are in a better position, to begin to look at those who are not having those issues and whatever we are talking about. What do I mean? The Adelabu, the Minister of Power, is celebrating 40% of Nigerians who now have access to power, 20-hour power supply, not even 24 hours ready. So what happens to the 60% population? So I think our efforts should really be, okay, in as much as the 40% they have access to power, this is what our interest is, to really bring the other 60% to begin to also have power supply. And when we get to that level, then begin talking about why is there even no power supply 24/7? With the reforms that have gone into that sector, with the resources that have gone into that sector, and with the fine brains that we have, what really is the issue? So it's a really it's a cause for concern as to why, as Nigerians, our leaders have decided to just continue to dwell on little successes, forgetting that those little successes translate to just little number of persons who are benefiting from the largesse, and the majority of us are actually in darkness. And that should really be a serious cause for concern. If Nigeria would want to grow economically, if Nigeria would want to make the citizens very vibrant, I think interest should also be put to converting the other 60% to begin to have regular power supply. And we're not just talking about 20 hours power supply. We're talking about 24/7 power supply. In some other part of Africa, this is being done. So it now becomes an individual regulating how they want to access energy. And it's unfortunate that while we have the Minister of Power who are walking around using hydro-powered energy, walking around gas-powered energy, Nigerians are once again going towards solar-powered, showing that we are a government for ourselves. I mean, when it started, we were buying generators. Now, we are now, because of high fuel costs, Nigerians are now resorting to solar. For how long would we continue to be our
and
own
the
government?
solar is not even
It's not even that affordable.
Cheap.
It's not even that affordable.
Okay, talking about hydropower electricity, let's also look at this other story. Federal government hands over 64 CNG buses to labor unions and NAS. Okay, that's moving completely from the problem that we encounter with fuel supply or oil or generally.
So necessity is the mother of invention, right? So it's good that we are becoming innovators, so much so that we are now transiting from vehicular movement powered by fuel energy to CNG, which is gas. And from reports and research, CNG seems to be more economical than fuel. But where I have my issue, and it has always been an issue with Nigerian government, is the duty of government in Nigeria should not be for a particular number of persons. When the government is making any policy, they should always, at every point in time, think the plurality of the Nigerian people. They should allow the NGOs, that's non-governmental organizations, philanthropists, individuals who want to help, to begin to do pockets of interventions. But when a government wants to do an intervention, it must be holistic. Okay, now we understand that sometimes resources are scarce. So it might not be possible to, at once, cover the entire population. But there must be a timeline. From this time to this time, this is the number, or first of all, this is our general number. So from this time to this time, this is the number of persons we intend to target. Then going to another period of time, these are the numbers of persons we tend to extend to. By so particular number of time, we have covered everybody. I think that should really be the interest of the government. I mean, for me, as a person, I would not read labor union and then NANS being given 64 CNG buses and begin to celebrate it. What is 64? what is the number of population that it can cover? So we are too good at little issues. We magnify them and then make it appear like we are working. No, we are not. If this 64, even the 64, only to how many states? Who are the labor who are the beneficiaries from the labor union and then from
how
the
many states will get? How many buses will be accredited to a state?
So that is the issue. So when you begin to bring it down, let's take it local. You find out that they have done virtually nothing, just a drop of water in an ocean, which is amounting to nothing. And as a government, they must have thought it through that this is the exact number of person they want to reach out to, and that is why they are giving this. But for us to start celebrating 64 CNG buses that has been released, for them in their mind, they might be thinking, wow, we have done a lot. But at this point in time, we should make them understand that they have a huge amount of work to be done to make life more meaningful and transportation easier
but at least they've started somewhere. That's the most important thing, because hitherto these things were not there. So now they have deemed it necessary to alleviate the sufferings of the masses. That's what they call it, to alleviate the sufferings of the poor and the vulnerable. That's why they're trying all these things. Okay, let's hope it continues. This is the first batch. Maybe subsequently there will be other batches that will make all these buses available for us. Okay, let's move over to next papers and look at what's going to happen in October 1st. October 1st protest, placement, flashpoints, APC, opposition, clash, a whole lot of things. And Vanguard said October 1st, place deploy in states as organizers insist on protest. Okay, from the riders we read before, let's look at what October 1st is going to look at. I mean, it's going to be like, are we expecting a shutdown of the nation like what happened in the last protest?
So Nigeria has been a space very difficult to predict when it comes to development. But when it comes to their lifestyle, their ideology, they are very, very predictable. First of all, I would want to wish all Nigerians out there happy Independence Day in advance. It's once again an opportunity to ask ourselves, how truly independent are we? Are we independent from what exactly? What are the things holding us down? And with the stories and conversation around October 1st, that is our Independence Day celebration. It is unfortunate that the current government in power have refused to use some of these key media as an opportunity to listen to the feelings of an average Nigerian. Many a times, when we adopted the MDG, Minimum Development Goal, which later metamorphosed to Sustainable Development Goal, there were a lot of things listed out, targeting to alleviating poverty, targeting for the poor, targeting the vulnerables, to bring them all up. And we are signatories to some of these initiatives. I think these are opportunities for the government to begin to ask, how far have we fared in this area, in poverty reduction, in access to healthcare, in access to education? And when the citizens want to protest, the president in question, and then by extension, the governors at the subnational, should not hush them. In fact, it should even be an opportunity for them to say, let me even know the impact of my policy. Let me even know my dreams for these people if I'm achieving it. But if you begin to, or you continue to hush them, even with your good intention, you might be promoting or enabling those under you who are hijacking your policies. But if you allow the system flow, you would on your own begin to ask. Sometimes I've always had this argument, sometimes when we engage government actors. I mean, you cannot go into an office with the intention that you want to deliberately do evil. There are atoms of good, both in policy and programs that you hope to do. And in that, when you're implementing them in your head and on the table, you've had it all planned out and you've rolled it out. So you should also know that sometimes these things might not be happening as you have had them in your head. They might not be happening as it is on the table. So there must also be that room for feedback mechanism. And what the citizens are trying to say is, whatever policy the government have over going to 2 years now is not working. And they want to protest. They want to show that they are not satisfied with it. So I think what the government is supposed to do is allow the citizens protest. The security agency should give them protection in terms of security. After they have protested, you get the information, feedback from them, and you go back and review and say, oh, you misunderstood our policy. This is our policy line. This is our policy direction. And there will be that room.
People want.
Exactly. So there will be that room for dialogue, instead of always giving it to us, whether we like it or not. We must take it, and then you send your thugs. And unfortunately, when the government is doing this, it is regrettable that it is government of the day that we have always assumed fought for democracy under a military regime. And what was, most times the military tried to also clamp on them, and it was still the same citizens and civil activists who were telling the military then that they cannot do this. We cannot then say that some of those persons who were victims of military dictatorship that should have learned better and then begin to implement what they have learned to better the lives of Nigerians, begin to do what the militaries did then. It's unfortunate. And I think part of what one of the headlines said from the Afenifere group, that they are going to reject unitary system of government. It is a call that every sane Nigerian needs to embrace. If we think we cannot practice democracy anymore, let us then say it is no more democracy that we are practicing. We give it a name so that everybody will key in. And not we pretending that we are practicing democracy, but in action, the things we see does not even seem like democracy. Okay, and it is not allowed that we are practicing or would allow unitary system of government.
Okay, talking about protest that is coming up tomorrow, October 1st, and let's quickly review what happened in the last protest. We know that some of them that were arrested are being charged for treason, and one of the takeaways we have here was saying that it's expected that they will release some of those guys because they're still held, in detention. That it's expected that some of those guys will be released today, at least to appease the mind of those that are coming out for protest tomorrow. How do you look at the situation whereby people come out to protest for hunger and bad governance, and then you termed it treasonable felony? Okay, is it going to be the same thing tomorrow as, because I'm sure that there's going to be arrest again tomorrow, and then you'll be termed to be a terrorist this time around?
There is a Reverend Father friend of mine that I love very well. There's something he used to say, and then I will use that in our Igbo palace. Also, Moses One didn't enjoy. And that means there are names that are masculine. And when you see a woman bearing that name, you would want to ask, where is this one coming from? Now, it is unfortunate that Nigerians, under a democratic dispensation, who are hungry, by the way, over years, the last administration, these same citizens were complaining that they were hungry. The party in power were protecting the administrator, telling us to give them time, that with time we are going to get it better. And Nigerians were asking how long for this time. We were all battling with it. Before we knew it, a gentleman who was 30 years became 38 years. And another person is in power, 2 years. That gentleman is now 40 years. Possibly he's off his prime. And you now see another young lad who was 20 years, who then became 28. And now 2 years, he is now 30. And wait a minute, he's not yet married. It's not like he wants to be a reverend father that don't get married. He doesn't even know where to begin from. And to worsen it all up, he's a graduate. He cannot even provide food to fend for himself. How much more get married and begin to take care of his own immediate family? He cannot even provide for his own parents, who trained him through school, and then some of them are now back home with their parents, and their parents are providing for them over the years. This is what has always been the picture. And now their parents are used to provide for them because of minimum wage saga, because of loss in purchasing power, cannot equitably provide for them anymore. These people are shouting that they are hungry, and I tell them to give them more power and more time. And listening to you asking for more time, they remembered you still asking for time for the previous administration. And they still remember you now, saying that the previous administration did not do anything. Definitely they will lose hope. And then that's why they have now come out. Because looking at where they are coming from, where they are, and looking into the future, even though they have been promised renewed hope, they cannot really see things that really show that this hope is near site, and they have gone out to protest. And instead of the Nigerian government to listen to innocent citizens who are protesting for a genuine cause, what are they saying? End bad governance. They are hungry. We have been killed by police. And it's unfortunate that even the NSAT saga is coming up all again, confirming the complacency of the government and in the whole shenanigan. And once again, sometimes we still hear, when we're talking about the NSAS, sometimes we still hear that SARS came and carried some news. And we ask ourselves, we thought SARS has been disbanded as we were told. How are we now still hearing that word SARS? Is it that Nigerians are misplacing that name or what? What is really happening in this country? So these are the whole issues that are making us protest.
Okay.
And people are protesting in different forms, really. So October 1st, the government is once again warned or advised that those citizens who protested during the End Bad Governance protest should be released. And tomorrow, they should no more arrest citizens. Rather, they should protect them and listen to their cries.
Very important. Okay, let's look at other papers that we still have here. Let's look at Daily Independent as our next paper this morning. The banner headline there says, Naira devaluation, floating put federal government's $1 trillion economic target at risk. Okay, and then down here, digital switchover hangs in the balance after 19 billion naira allocation. That's what we have coming from the Daily Independent. Okay, now this day is our next paper. Gathered so World Bank, IMF brainstorm to craft new strategies for inclusive growth in Africa. Is what we have coming from this day newspaper. Okay, we've moved from Daily Independent to this day newspaper, please. And then banner headline there says 64th anniversary, despite bumpy days, nation will prevail, says Akpabio. Okay, I would like to look at the writers of this story. Declares Tinubu's dedication inspirational, insists South is not marginalized. SGF urges Obasanjo to continue to speak in support of national unity existence. And then states Nigeria will be most prosperous under current administration. Okay. Obovorewe urges citizens to persevere. We keep persevering. Now, do we have any other job than persevere while some of them live in affluence, even to our faces? Okay, let's go over to the Guardian newspaper. Only 7 of 20 subsidiaries viable as NNPCL battles 22 trillion naira debt. Very busy Guardian newspaper. Let's see if we can take any story of interest here. Obaseki Shaibu Bika over alleged plot to invade government house. Afenifere disapproves government's proposed NI. Okay, nail jerk. And then 96% of SMEs struggling under inflation control policies. Economists warn. This is where we should look into and find out exactly what to do. Anxiety as Tinubu's government braces for second mass protest in 2 months. PDP crisis deepens as North Central caucus insists on replacing Damagon. Federal government showcased 250 billion naira to tackle flooding. SERAP, Action Aid demand INEC's prosecution of bribery offenses against governors and deputies. What's coming from? Okay, that's all. That's all we're taking from the Guardian newspaper. Daily Trust is our next paper this morning. Daily Trust newspaper. Okay, banner headline on Daily Trust: residents now disagrees as airstrike kills scores in Kaduna again. It's what a lot of people will ask now. 23 worshippers among victims, locals. Oh my God. We only hit terrorist base. Air Force is saying this. State government silent. As usual. Okay. Other stories. Local government poll. Uncertainty in Rivers PDP as Fubara's allies defect to APP. Constitution review. Northern, Southern senators disagree on regionalism. Okay, sorry. And then here, media trust donates 10 million naira to Maiduguri flood victims. Any other story of interest here? Bandits abduct NURTW health workers, 3 kids in Kaduna. Oh my God. Property bonds as tanker explodes in Bayelsa. Federal government hands over 64 CNG buses. We have seen that story. The last story coming from Daily Trust here says, heart diseases spike, fuel sudden deaths. Heart diseases spike, fuel sudden deaths in Nigeria. Now, who is saying that? Okay. Experts identify causes and then prefer solutions. Okay. The last paper. Okay, not the last. Okay, not last but not the least. Nigerian Tribune, state creation, police top agenda as senators begin retreat on new constitution. Who was saying that? Some regions are saying that what they call regionalization is a cake. Okay, state police in line with global practice. Those against it are playing the ostrich. And then Senate leaders, Southeast, South, senators demand new states. Okay. China prepared to learn more. Federal government not discussing debt forgiveness with Beijing. This is coming from the minister. Which of the ministers? Get your newspaper and find out. Nigeria to save 5.4 trillion naira from subsidy removal in 2024. Coming from our building, Edo election further exposes INS incompetency. Afenifere is saying this. Let's take the last paper this morning and see if we can catch in any of the news stories here. The last paper is the blueprint. Okay, federal government hands over 64 CNG buses to NLC, TUC, and NANS. We've seen the story. Any other story of interest here? Police organizers this dialogue over October 1st protest. Okay, that's good. Well, let me ask you, my analyst, Samuel, do you have any story of interest you want to talk about before we shut down?
Once again, we keep battling with a lot of issues in the country. Our political elites using the division amongst us to continue to perpetrate evil.
Sure, you want to talk about the constitution review?
Yeah, that's where I'm going to.
Okay, let's go.
Using the division amongst us to perpetrate evil, why the victims still decide to continue to hold on to the likes of, should we call it ethnicism, religious affiliation, and all whatnot. The time has come for us to really set aside all our differences and look at the way forward. If not, there is nothing that is constant than change. For a long time, we have been told that our unity cannot be
negotiable.
Cannot be negotiated, really. And that's a serious claim. However, if we agree that we have all come to the terms to work together, then it is necessary for us to begin to look at important documents that would really hold us together. And I belong to the school of thought that have argued strongly, or that have said that even though the past constitution has never really been our problems, because in the constitution there are stated things that should be done, and when our leaders who should protect this constitution don't do them, there are actions that should be melted on them. But we decide to go to the constitution, choose the part that would favor us and act on it, just like we do when it concerns court judgments. Then those ones that don't favor us, we use our executive power to push them aside. Now that we're talking about constitutional review, it is important again for us as Nigerians to set aside our differences, because virtually everything that happens, is it in politics, is it in development, is it in distribution of resources, all are captured in the constitution. And now that the Senate have once again started talking about constitutional review, it is important that every Nigerian, despite your dissenting voice contribute to that constitution review. What it does is we then look at everybody's opinion and make sure to find a meeting point so that we now all agree. And when we say we the people, it becomes a true reflection of we the people and not some persons who over the years brought out a constitution and wrote we the people. Or Nigerians, it is high time we stop pulling ourselves away from national development because we feel we are angry. It is not acceptable. We must get fully involved. I will leave it at that.
Okay, thank you very much. We must get fully involved. That is the bottom line in all we do as a nation and as citizens of a nation. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us this morning. Samuel Ololo, our public affairs analyst, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right, and that's where we're drawing the curtain on newspaper review this morning. I'd like to urge you to remember to join us tomorrow. Tomorrow is October 1st. Who knows what the paper is coming up with? And you want to.